Quarterback Matt Zollers is on commitment watch. Really nobody else for the Nittany Lions. Should Penn State be concerned about that?
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Penn State football has at least one guaranteed commitment watch to have, with Matt Zollers committing in about a week or so here to start off April, but then nobody really else has made an announcement. This is Locked On Nittany Lions. I'm your host, Seyko, and thanks so much for making us your first listen and watch every single day. We welcome him back for a part two in this recruiting extravaganza, and that is Dylan Callaghan-Croley over at HappyValleyInsider.com. And Dylan, Matt Zollers is going to commit in the first week of April here, and like we addressed in the our discussion about Zollers or Washington, but I'm getting the sense that I guess this is a little concerning that Penn State doesn't have anybody else to look forward to. Maybe there's some silent commitments here and there that you would know about, but other than Zollers, Penn State's not really looking forward to any verbal commitments in the near future, unless you know otherwise.
Yeah, I would say there's obviously no planned commitments. Are there guys that maybe we have our eyes on heading into the blue-white game? It's always a time of the year where Penn State seems to pick up a commitment or two. Yeah, there's a couple of those guys. I think the one on top of my head or on our list here, looking at the guys we have future cast at Penn State, Lex Cyrus perhaps could be a guy that commits sooner than later. That one does really seem like that's a Penn State. As long as Penn State continues to push, of course, that's a more of a Penn State when, not if type scenario. That's just my personal feel. I think Penn State's in a really good spot there. But other guys, like Jeff Exiner, Andrew Olish, Kanoa Winston, just feel like there's still a little bit of time to go in those recruitments. So, I mean, yeah, there's not a ton of action heading into these couple of weeks of practice visits and such in the blue-white game. But I'm not totally surprised by that either. Penn State already has, I believe it is 12 commitments in this class now. 11, because Amari Gaines decommitted. 11 commitments in this class. I would expect that number to probably be at 12 or 13 by the time official visit season comes around. But then we all know Penn State's going to go on a run during official visit season, which they pick up another 10, 12 commitments. And by the time this cycle hits the beginning of fall camp, Penn State's going to be 95 to 99% of the way done their class. I think last year, you look at their 2024 recruiting class, the final commitment in that class was Jalen Harvey in October. Besides that, the second to last commitment was July 22nd, and that was T.A. Cunningham. So at that point, we saw 24, 25 guys committed, and Harvey was a guy who we knew it was going to be, one of 5 schools, and that was supposed to end at one point, and then it just kept getting pushed back and back and back. But yeah, Penn State's going to be 99% way done this cycle, no matter what, come September. But yeah, it's quieted down the last few weeks. But it is worth noting that they went through a little bit of a nice run there for a few weeks in January and February as well, which has caused kind of a bit of a lull here, which is to be expected.
And I'm glad that you made that point, because yes, it is concerning in the presence, because it's like, it's a little too quiet, and there's all this interest, and there's rumors that Penn State is going to get to go on a hot streak. But when will that hot streak happen? And I'm glad you mentioned official visit season, because that's what happened last time around, and that's usually what happens. So Penn State will start to get its base like it normally does, the headline recruits of any class, and then May, June, July, where they might pick up 2-3 commitments almost each month, and then get closer to that 25 total, which is always what they're targeting.
Yeah, and it's going to be beneficial for Penn State in the future as well. It's no secret that they're a program that likes to get their recruiting classes out of the way early so they can start focusing on the next class. 2023 was kind of a can't think of the word right now, but it was a little different than most classes. They picked up like 4 or 5 guys after, I think, October. But, you go back to 2022, again, they had 23 or 25 guys committed by the end of July. They picked Amari Evans up in October that year, and then picked up Vega Ione in February of 2022. So they like to get these classes done early, and we're going to probably see an early sign-in period here. I forget the exact early sign-in period dates for going forward, but there's going to be an August or summer sign-in period at some point in the future, most likely here, and that's going to be beneficial for Penn State that they don't have to worry about those guys after the summer too.
Now, this is more of a defensive-focused episode. Again, I encourage people to go check out the previous episode, which talked about quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. But defensively, sure, they got 3 linebacker commits, but they don't really have a lot else on defense outside of Xavier Thomas at defensive back. And then there's that decommitment. What do Deion Barnes and Terry Smith need to do to bolster the defensive side of the football? Let's talk about that on the other side of this break. This episode is brought to you by Bettor Together. Is your bracket already busted? Are you tired of the same old daily fantasy grind where you make a roster, you cross your fingers, and hope for the best? Or losing on that last leg of your pick'em entry? That one stings. Introducing Bettor Together, the first cooperative daily fantasy sports platform where teamwork triumphs talent and you can play with your friends instead of against them. That's gone. Pick more or less than on real-time player stats, strategize with your partner to boost your odds, and climb the leaderboard together. So grab a friend and join the social DFS movement. You can now put your friends to the test, prove that your group is better than the rest. And the synergy of working together gives you better chances at winning than going at it alone. It's all about the team, right? It's all about the team with Bettor Together. Download Bettor Together today from the App Store and sign up using promo code LOCKEDON for a chance to win your share of over $1,000 in cash prizes. Remember the code LOCKEDON, because winning alone is fun, but it's better together. Today's episode is also brought to you by Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV, and it'll provide access to millions of movies and TV shows, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournaments, you're going to want to have Fire TV. Fire TV recently created the Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us here at Locked On, and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV lets you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports, from March Madness to the NBA, Major League Baseball, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, and cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. That's Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN all day long on your TV? You have to turn down the volume with all that shouting. Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Like this episode, share it with friends and family. Let us know in the comments what do you think about Penn State. A little lacking on the defensive side of the football with the class of 2025. And if you want to keep up with what Dylan does, check out happyvalleyinsider.com, and you can follow him on X as well for more Penn State and Penn State recruiting news as well. Dylan, defensive line and defensive back, I think truly are concerning at this point, because you have the Amari Gaines commitment, and then you have players like, in state, right? One of the top prospects in state, and Penn State, dominate the state. Well, Pennsylvania is one of the best prospects. Zahir Mathis commits to Ohio State. That's a big deal. And so at this point in time in the class of 2024 or 2025, linebacker set. You have 3 linebacker commits, and we'll talk about that more in the final segment. But defensive line, when Deion Barnes, we were just done praising him for what the work he did in 2024, and now 25 seems a little lackluster. So what are you hearing about defensive line and DB specifically that says, yeah, Penn State will turn this around very soon?
There's a lot of positive momentum, I would say, on the defensive line. And quite frankly, defensive line in state, in region, yes, Zahir Mathis was in state, but in region and in the state, defensive line this year, kind of weak. So Penn State has had to.
So they're going to go outside.
They've had to go outside their normal, I guess you could say, recruiting footprint, and kind of look deeper into some other states. You know, let's start with defensive tackle. Just a couple names to keep an eye on.
Sure.
Jaquez Carter out of Newberry, Florida, a 4-star defensive tackle. He's been on campus a couple of times. That's somebody to watch. Halim Muhammad, the 6'5", 260 defensive tackle out of New Jersey, who we mentioned in our last segment/episode. He's somebody to watch. You got Trent Wilson, of course, somebody that I think Penn State's still very.
I like Wilson a lot.
Very much at the top of his board or his list. So doing good there. And then, you know, defensive end, yes, they've had to look also outside their normal footprint, but they are really high on Texas defensive end Max Granville, who's just coming off an unofficial visit to Penn State, multiple day unofficial visit. They're going to be a contender for him. Julius Hawley, I should say, 4-star out of Georgia, just on campus for an unofficial visit. He was, quite frankly, blown away by Penn State, and they've become a serious contender for him. He is going to be back on campus. So doing well with those two. And then you got guys like, you know, Cortez Harris. They offered Jesse Harold, and they have a couple other guys, Adam Shovlin, Landon Rink, who they've scheduled an official visit with. All have picked up offers as well. So I think they're doing a good job gaining momentum finally at defensive end, especially because at DT, if they get Trent Wilson, that's a major win. And then whoever you can get maybe to fill in a second spot is, you know, you'd be happy with just the fact you got Trent Wilson. But defensive end, they've needed to do a lot of work and a lot of, you know, hard recruiting there to get some momentum their way. And there is plenty of that, I would say, heading into April and into official visit season.
And then going over to defensive back, outside of Xavier Thomas, who when he made his commitment, most sites didn't even have a profile for him. Yeah. And that, you know, comes as a bit of a surprise. But if Penn State takes a commitment, that means they want the kid, they want him to join Penn State. And not say, well, you don't have a recruiting profile, so we're not taking you here. But it's only Xavier Thomas. So I'm glad that things are trending in the right direction for defensive line. But then Amari Gaines decommits here, and he was a defensive back that, you know, was going to be a quality piece of the class. But I think there's a reason for that, Dylan, and you know, can back me up on this or challenge it if you feel like. I think just as much as you know, Penn State, we've talked about how Penn State likes to take kids. They tell them to commit. They can also tell them to decommit here. I think part of the reason that Amari Gaines decommits is he's a 3-star defensive back in this case, and it's not trying to be disrespectful for him, but I think Penn State with limited scholarships, it's targeting and it's in good standing with more 4-star, potentially 5-star targets at the end of the day, meaning that there's no room for Gaines anymore in this class.
Yeah, I'd say about that. I think Penn State and Gaines were both on a similar page that the best thing for Gaines' future would probably to just, you know, open up his recruitment and take a look at what his other options are, because, you know, his junior season wasn't the greatest, and his development, in my opinion, has not gone maybe the way that some would have expected. I still think he can be a very good player, but it would have been hard, I think, for him to see the field at Penn State. And when you're Penn State in the position they are, in which they're trying to, they've established themselves as one of the country's top 10, 15 programs, but you're trying to establish yourself as a national title contender each and every year. And when you're trying to do that, you really have little room for error when it comes to missing on prospects. So if you don't feel like a guy's going to be able to make an impact, you got to have some tough conversations.
Right.
But at cornerback, they are progressing well with a couple guys there. We mentioned Jameer Joseph before in our last segment. He's somebody to watch. Columbus, Ohio prospect Dwayne Galloway, another guy who's been on campus recently and then scheduled an official visit quickly afterwards. Somebody to watch there. Maryland corner Aiden Smith is somebody to watch. On Rivals, we haven't listed as wide receiver, but Brandon Finney out of Maryland is another name to watch at cornerback. So they are in a good spot for 4 or 5 guys, I think, that could be a part of this class going forward. But again, I think those are just going to be guys that they have to wait till official visit season or afterwards to get as part of this class. And I'm sure there's a couple other guys that are going to be able to get on campus that I haven't mentioned that they'll have a solid chances at landing as well.
I like Kainoa Winston as well. That's another name. He's more of a safety, but out of Gonzaga High School, where Olu Fashanu had played. I like him to join the class as well, and I think you have a forecast in for him too. Yeah,
Kainoa Winston, we have a future cast in for, and I didn't even mention some of the athletes that they were recruiting at quarterback as well, which would extend the list quite a bit as well. But yeah, at safety, Kainoa Winston. Somebody that we feel really good about Penn State landing. I know it's been a couple months since we put in that future cast, and he's still not committed. But that's a long play there by us. I think we're going to be hopefully right at the end for our sake. But I still feel good about where Penn State stands with him. Penn State's in a spot with, in a quality spot with quite a few cornerbacks safeties. Kainoa Winston, Onis Kanembani out of South Carolina is going to be taking an official visit. And then you got Xavier Bridges Brooks and Jadon Blair as well, who are both, guys to know at that safety position, especially Jadon Blair. Penn State's going to have, I think, good chance of landing at least one of Jadon Blair, Onis Kanembani, and Kainoa Winston. So they should be pretty well set at safety as well.
Well, while those positions round out, linebackers set. And what's interesting enough is that Manny Diaz leaves for Duke. Tom Allen comes in, and Penn State's able to get 2 more linebacker commits to really shore up that position for the class of 2025. How is Tom Allen doing it? Well, let's find out on the other side of this break. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tourney. Whether you're betting on a big upset or you're betting on a number 1 seed to move on, it's time to go dancing on America's number 1 sportsbook, FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 in bonus bets to use on point spreads, money lines, totals. You can even pick who's going to win it all. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon, and bet on college hoops until they cut down the nets. Today's episode is also brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience. It's what brings home the winning trophy, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors is everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to its peak performance. From superchargers to roof racks to exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number 1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. That's ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Motors. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And if you're not already, become an everydayer. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams, including Penn State football recruiting here. Yeah, that's why we bring the expert Dylan onto the show. You can keep up with him at happyvalleyinsider.com and on social media at X to see more recruiting news. And in this final segment, I mean, linebacker shirt up here. You have all 3 linebacker spots taken care of with Alex Tatch and Deshaun Burnett committing. And then you already had DJ McClary out of New Jersey, but there's no worry about him decommitting with Manny Diaz moving on to be the head coach over at Duke. And I know, okay, Penn State missed out, legacy prospects, other linebacker targets, or, one follows Manny Diaz to Duke. There's questions about Anthony Sacca, or he didn't include Penn State in his top list of schools, but that's okay because Penn State already has 3 starting linebacker commits covered here, right? I'm not making a point that they will start, but they try to fill out a roster: quarterback, running backs, multiple wide receivers, multiple offensive linemen, tight end, multiple defensive linemen, multiple linebackers. And how many linebackers do you have in a 4-3? You have 3. Penn State has 3 in 2025. So they're set here, and they're all high-end 4-stars. And we saw the jump that Tatch made in the recruiting rankings. So there's nothing left to say that any of McClary and Burnett could do the same thing as well. So, but that's a testament to what Tom Allen has done, coming in a short period of time, to not only reestablish the relationship with McClary, but to gain a commitment when those players, Tatch and Burnett, were already being recruited by Diaz. Tom Allen comes in for a matter of, a month, and he's able to secure not 1, but 2 linebacker commits as the new defensive coordinator, linebackers coach at Penn State.
Yeah, so I think when it comes to Tom Allen, the early success, it's quite simple. Track record is phenomenal. Maybe he's not the defensive coordinator track record that Manny Diaz has, but
recently,
but by no means is he not a good defensive coordinator. I expect him to be a very good defensive coordinator for Penn State. Manny Diaz, just comes into Penn State as a real high regarded defensive mind, and even despite the failed stint at Miami, I think is how that went down definitely helped him too. But Tom Allen, he's got that, like a better word, Indiana stink, I guess you could say, surrounding him.
Yes.
Just in general, in terms of how he's perceived. You look at his record at Indiana, you're like, oh, this guy can't be good. Now, Tom Allen's a very good defense coordinator. Penn State's defense, probably is going to take a small step back, just because can they really take another step forward? It's really, but
they're number 1. They were number 1.
Right. I expect them to be a top 10 defense once again this year. But the track record for Tom Allen, he is a phenomenal linebacker developer. He developed multiple all Big Ten linebackers. I think he developed multiple all American linebackers at Indiana, who gets much less talent than Penn State does. And now he has a chance to recruit at linebacker U and have some of the best linebacker talent in the country at his disposal. And I mean, Penn State's linebacker room is going to have a little bit of a challenge this year too, because they lost Abdul Carter this offseason to the defensive line. But I think you look at Tom Allen's track record and it speaks for himself, and that's what stands out to recruits. He's a guy who developed linebackers into All-Americans at Indiana.
Yes.
Lesser recruited guys. If he could do that with them, what can he do with high 4-star talent and even potentially 5-star talent in the future? And they got 3 kids right now, and they're not necessarily done. I think they're going to be very picky with if they take a 4th guy, but I think they're very much willing to take a 4th, such as a Ty Jackson out of Florida, if they can do so. So yeah, I think they're comfortable with the 3 they have, but they're not necessarily done at the position either. And Tom Allen is looking to continue to stack that position with talent, which is good news for Penn State fans, because that position's already pretty deep for the Nittany Lions, and should be an exciting group in 2024. And
don't forget about LeVar Arrington's son. He's in this class as well, and there's significant interest on both sides there too.
Yeah, that's kind of like one of the more, I guess, question marks in this cycle. It's just like, how's that recruitment going to go? Like we know both sides obviously have interest, but just where is it going to go? And he, unlike his dad, he didn't grow up in Pennsylvania. He's grown up. I don't know. He spent his entire life in California, but he's down in California now, and it's. If you grew up outside Los Angeles, I could see, State College not necessarily being the most appealing place to play football. But hey, maybe legacy wins out there. Maybe other things win out as well. But that's always something to watch as well.
He is Dylan Callaghan-Croley, site manager, recruiting expert over at HappyValleyInsider.com. Penn State Rivals. You can keep up with him on X. And if you like these conversations, subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts for the latest conversations around your favorite Penn State sports teams. Dylan, thanks so much for the time. Really appreciate it and can't wait for the next time we get to catch up on some Penn State football recruiting.
Absolutely. Look forward to it.
And don't forget, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus the national shows covering each and every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on YouTube and the free Fire TV channels app.